we don't have a mic right now, we need some batteries. This morning we're going to have Linda Foster come and give her reflections on the pilgrimage to the Jonathan Daniels that we went to in August. And we're going to go ahead and get started by welcoming her, and after that then we'll do some more discussion about Just Mercy. Linda.
I have to have glasses on. Okay. I had never been on a pilgrimage before.
You're going to have to talk
Okay.
really loud.
Okay.
Step up until you get a mic.
Let's move
Okay.
that thing up.
Move this up for you.
Okay. I'd never been on a pilgrimage before, and I was going on this one. I was going on this one because a lot of my friends were going, and I wanted to go with them. Plus, Michael Agwanda from Kenya was coming, and he had accepted to join us on this pilgrimage. Now, this seemed really exciting to me, and I was curious, and I envisioned good talks coming out of this and sharing of ideas. However, that's not the most important thing that happened. The pilgrimage unearthed in me stories from my early years that I had tucked away, and now they were playing over and over in my head. Now can you hear better? Okay, good. All right. There were many stories, but I'm going to tell you 3. First story is when I was about 10 years old, my mother worked, so we had a maid to take care of my brother and me. Her name was Carrie Lee, and she had a daughter named Queenie, and sometimes Queenie would come to play with me. And this particular day, Queenie and I were playing jacks on the sidewalk when up walks Tommy Lee Penn and a bunch of his friends, and he's waving his BB gun in the air. He said to me, "What are you doing with that nigger?" "Well, we're playing jacks," I said, and I felt really scared inside. He started waving his gun at Queenie and yelling, Get out of here!" like she was some animal or something. And that's when I stood up and Tommy Lee started shooting his gun. One BB ricocheted off a tree, hit me under my left eye. Well, I thought he'd shot my eye out, so I was screaming and crying, and his friends were all running, and Carrie Lee brought Queenie and me back inside, made everything better, except that Queenie could never come back and visit anymore. I hated Tommy Lee Penn. I wished some really bad things on him. I'd grown accustomed to hurtful comments made to me because I was fat. But why was this said? Why were people mean to Queenie? I asked my parents about it, but they had little to say, and they brushed it off. At the pilgrimage, I stood at the storefront where Jonathan Daniels was shot, and I wondered how Jonathan could have been so brave. I stood in the courtroom where the shooter was free with no consequences for killing another human being, and even years later, he claimed no remorse over this incident. It was really emotional to me to be there and to know what had happened 50 years before, and that this guy still was feeling the same way, no remorse whatsoever. I felt the sting of racism of our culture, and my stories reminded me how blind we still are for the privilege of being white. Story number 2. Most maids, like Carrie Lee, took the bus to and from work, but my mom and dad drove Carrie Lee home every evening, and sometimes I got to go inside and talk to Sadie. Sadie was Carrie Lee's mother, and she had white hair. She sat in a big rocker, and when she laughed, the whole floor shook. She always had a cookie or a piece of candy for me, and when Sadie died, we were invited to the funeral. I went with Mama and another lady, and we were ushered right down to the very front row. Being the only white people in the church, people were staring. And the preacher got up and said, "The white ladies in our church today are Miss Carrie Lee's white folks. And they love Sadie just like we love Sadie." I was smiling and I felt so good. It was like being part of a great big family. And I often feel that very same way when I go to Kenya. From all the photos I saw of Jonathan Daniels, I knew he was family to the people that he worked with and to those he stayed with. I wondered why people would turn their heads and walk away instead of opening their hearts in my church. But we were welcomed at Carrie Lee's church. Story number 3. In 1965 in Jackson, Mississippi, integration was in full swing, and John Foster and I were getting married. Carrie Lee had come from Chicago to attend our wedding, and while Mother seemed to be in a stew over everything, I told Mom that I wanted Carrie Lee to sit in the front pew with our family at the wedding, and she said absolutely not. But why, I questioned. She told me that there had been sit-ins and some integration issues targeting churches in Jackson, and she didn't want our wedding to be ruined. She said that Carrie Lee could sit in the back of the church. She'd have to wear a uniform, right alongside Trini and Inez. I shook my head. I couldn't believe it. Mom, that's just wrong. That's just not right, I cried, and I stormed off to my bedroom. Mom was upset. I was upset. Carrie Lee came and caught me by the arm, and she said, "Now, Miss Linda, don't you make no trouble for your mama. She's a good woman, and she's doing the very best she can." Well, I listened, and a wave of warm calmness washed over me. Believing it was God speaking, I shut up, and I knew the wedding would go as my mama planned. But this very day, I still wonder what I could have done, what I could have said to have gotten Carrie Lee to sit with my family. Since the pilgrimage, my stories have become my teachers. I've thought a lot about how things had changed in these 50 years. True, you don't see the KKK riding down Main Street with their sheets on and shouting obscenities. And you don't hear much about lynching anymore, but racism is still alive. I believe that we have learned to coexist, but that is not racial harmony. The pilgrimage and my stories changed my thinking. They've changed my life. They spurred me on to read the book, Just Mercy, a real eye-opener into the changes our nation needed and still needs. The pilgrimage and remembering the details of my story helped me see with heightened awareness the need for compassion, kindness, and love in me and in the world. I still do not understand how we can be so cruel to one another, but I do have hope that we can be better people when we don't live in fear. And when we seek to include different kinds of people in our lives without worrying what others think about us. Yes, I will continue to be involved in dismantling racism as I now look at daily events with more care and questioning of myself and others.
Thank you, Linda. Can I have a show of hands of how many group facilitators we have in the room and where they are? So this group does not have one here, 2 there. Can one person move over here? And can, okay.
Do you need more people, Crystal?
I think we're good. I think, Rick and Lisa, if you join a group so we don't miss you this time and skip you. Thank you. And we have, did someone move over here? So now, does everyone have a facilitator in their group? Okay. So we're going to take a little bit of time to look at some of the questions from our study guide. Don't try and answer all the questions in a day, okay? Because what we really want you to do is to look at each question and really answer it with some depth and ask yourself, what does that mean for me as I move forward? How does that live out in my life? So take some time, pick a question, pick two, but don't try and do the whole study guide at one time. So you can, everyone kind of meet with their groups. If you don't have a name tag on, I am going to ask you to go to one of the tables and put one on. All right? And we'll gather back together in about 20 minutes.
Okay. This is a totally different group for the most part. I think Nina's the only one. You were here last year. Yeah, Anna's here. Okay, Nina and Anna. Okay, so, well, I'd like, my name is Peggy Dawson, and I say the Dawson because a lot of people know me that way. I've been dating George here 4 years, so I have trouble changing my name.